Hello, Mishpucha. It's Courtney, America's Jewish mother, and today is October 1st, so I am here to do my September reading wrap-up and rankings. So I'm going to leave the books that I finished this week for my Friday Reads video tomorrow to discuss those in greater detail. I am going to include them in this wrap-up, though, so you will already know just a little bit about what I think of them and what their ranking was, but I will, like I said, talk more about the books that I actually finished this week tomorrow in Friday Reads. And I'm going to try to do this in a sort of more rapid fire style where I don't talk about any book for more than, a minute or so. So we're going to see how that goes. So I finished 10 books in the month of September. I technically finished the last one today, but I read 3/4 of it in September. So I think that counts. So I'm going to start with the one I liked least and go all the way up to the one that I liked the best. So the book in 10th place for this month is Michael Wex's Born to Kvetch, Yiddish Language and Culture in All of Its Moods. This is a nonfiction book about Yiddish and its development and its use in a variety of contexts, and I ended up giving this 2.5 stars overall. It is the only book that I outright this month do not really recommend picking up at all unless you are super into linguistics and or Yiddish, because I feel like that's the only way you would get something out of this book. It started off good for me, but then it quickly became tedious because it was just one phrase after another with very in-depth etymological explanations of where the phrases originated from. So 2.5 stars. In 9th place was another book I finished this week, The Refugees by Viet Thanh Nguyen. This is Nguyen's short story collection. I think he published this in 2017, maybe as a follow-up to The Sympathizer. And I didn't love The Sympathizer, and I also did not love this collection. I ended up giving it 3 stars overall. It has 8 stories, and my edition of it also has 2 essays by Nguyen at the end, and I quite like the 2 essays, but of the 8 short stories, only 2 of them I thought, these are really good stories. 2 more I thought, these are alright stories, but they're missing a little something, and the other 4 I just found completely forgettable. But it's a very inoffensive collection in the sense that it's not great, it's not terrible, it's just okay. So 3 stars. In 8th place this month was James Weldon Johnson's Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, which I rated 3.5 stars. This, as I said when I wrapped it up, is a sort of classic of African American literature that deals with the subject of racial passing, but it also does it in a somewhat satirical way because you're not actually meant to take the narrator of this book at face value. Ha ha ha, sort of, because he looks white. Okay, enough of my bad humor. But yeah, so you're not really supposed to take the narrator at face value. He's somewhat unreliable, but I think that part was not entirely clear to me until I read a critical article about this book, and that gave me more appreciation for it, so I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And again, it's a very interesting book about the subject of racial passing, but I think you could also read The Vanishing Half or Passing by Nella Larson or some other things if you wanted to know more about that subject before you read this one, but 3.5 stars. I also finished, this is the one I finished just today, Daniel Silva's Prince of Fire. This is the 5th in the Gabriel Allon series. And this book pretty much finds Gabriel being used as a pawn in a giant terrorist conspiracy. And this particular book retreads some of the ground that Silva covers in the first book in the Gabriel Allon series, The Kill Artist. So it's largely about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I do think he actually explores the topic here with a little bit more nuance and complexity than he does in The Kill Artist, but he's definitely way more sympathetic to the side of Israel than he is to the side of the Palestinians, which you can pretty much expect from any of Daniel Silva's Gabriel Allon books. But again, it moved along at a good pace. I found it compelling. I read the whole book in 4 days. So 3.5 stars overall. The next book on the list, so this is I think number 6, was Toppling the Melting Pot, Immigration and Multiculturalism in American Pragmatism by Jose Antonio Orozco. I quite liked this book. I ended up giving it 3.75 stars overall. I thought the structure of it and organization of it made a lot of sense. In each chapter, Orozco pretty much covers one pragmatist figure and talks about how immigration influenced that particular philosopher or writer's thoughts. And like I said, I thought the organization made sense overall, and it was a good, solid argument. So yeah, 3.75 stars. The next book on the list, number 5, is Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. I'm going to go ahead and say that it was pretty hard for me to rate the next several books on the list because they were all 4-star reads. But I'm not going to complain about having a lot of 4-star reads because last month I only had one 4-star read, and that was my best read of the month. And I didn't have anything that was, I didn't have more than one 4-star read, and I definitely didn't have any 5-star read. So no complaints that it was a little bit hard to rank the 4-star reads. But anyway, so I gave this 4 stars. Again, a classic of African American literature. You follow Janie Crawford from young womanhood to adulthood and through the course of 3 different significant relationships in her life. And as she tells her friend Phoebe at the end of this book, there are 2 things that and I'm paraphrasing here, there are 2 things that everyone has to do for themselves. They have to go to God and they have to find out about living for themselves, and Janie definitely does that over the course of this novel. Number 4 on my list for the month was The Lightning Within, an anthology of contemporary American Indian fiction. This is edited by Alan R. Velli, but it includes selections from a variety of Native American writers, particularly those who were important to the Native American Renaissance, because this book was published in the early 90s, so it has selections from Michael Doris, Louise Erdrich, Gerald Viziner, and Scott Momaday, Simon Ortiz, and a few other people. I quite liked it overall as an anthology. There were several writers I'd encountered before and some that I had not encountered before, and again, I thought it was a pretty good selection of writings overall. Maybe a little too focused on novels. I would have liked more either context for those selections or the inclusion of a few more short stories, but overall a very good, solid collection, especially if you want to know more about Native writers. So 4 stars. My number 3 pick for the month was Gloria Naylor's The Women of Brewster Place, which we read for Robert at Barter Horde's Backlist Book Club. I also gave this book 4 stars. This was apparently Gloria Naylor's debut, and it's very impressive that it's her debut because she does a great job of describing the lives of these women who all live at Brewster Place, and basically the novel takes you through 7 interconnected short stories, and in the first story you come to find out how that character came to Brewster Place, and in the subsequent stories you sort of see more present day events going on that are happening at Brewster Place as well, and the connections between the characters. And even though there's a lot of sadness, tragedy, and heartbreak in this novel, there also is a lot of love, a lot of celebration of female friendship, and a lot of community building as well. So I appreciated those aspects of it. So 4 stars. Number 2 book that I read this month was Louise Erdrich's Love Medicine, which I also rated 4 stars. Like The Women of Brewster Place, I would really characterize this more as a series of interconnected short stories than I would as a novel, but whatever. This is billed as a novel, that was billed as a novel, so whatever. But yeah, so basically this particular book discusses the lives of 2 Native families, the Cashpaws and the Lamartines, and you see the intersections of their family lines, and you get to know the characters pretty well, even though some of them you aren't spending a great amount of time of. They're still characterized very well. I didn't love this quite as much as I loved Tracks, so that's why it got 4 stars for me instead of 5, but I thought still a very strong book, and Erdrich's writing is gorgeous as always. So 4 stars. And then my favorite book of the month should be no surprise to anyone. It was Claudia Rankine's Just Us, An American Conversation, which I gushed about in my last Friday Reads video. So I will not gush about it here, but it's very good. It's mainly a collection of essays. There is a little bit of poetry, but it's mostly essays. I strongly recommend this. I thought it was very smart, very timely, and I most appreciated about this book the fact that Rankine continues uncomfortable conversations because she feels like that's important, and she also encourages us as the readers to have uncomfortable conversations, even if they are uncomfortable, to keep the conversation going. So that was my number one read of this month. So that's it. Those are all the books that I read in the month of September. If you have thoughts about any of them, I would love to know that. Please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I would also love to know what the best books you read in the month of September were. I hope you all are staying healthy and doing well. I hope you're doing good reading. And until tomorrow, would it kill you to call your mother?